And I'm sitting here in this hospital room going, what the heck just happened, man? Like, my daughter's fighting for her life. My wife is fighting for her life. And I'm just sitting here like, where's the happy story? Like, where's my Hallmark moment, man? And I'm just, I'm breaking down. And I'm like, I just go into the bathroom and I just like weep like a little baby because I'm like, I'm going into the hospital hoping to come out with two.
Right.
And now I'm faced with the realization I may not come out with anything. Like, I may come out of this hospital alone.
Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the RESGEN Giving Life podcast, where we hear stories and have conversations about being a man whose life in Christ gives life to others. My name's Tom Henderson, the founder of RESGEN, and boy, do we have a great episode on tap for you today. Before we jump into it though, I want to make sure that you have a couple of dates reserved in your calendars. The first is Friday, January 15, 2027, which is our date night comedy event taking place at the Washington Pavilion in downtown Sioux Falls. And the second is Saturday, February 20th for the RESGEN Men's Summit 2027. More information, including when tickets will be available and who our event speakers and comedians are, will be shared in the coming weeks. That said, you'll definitely want to make sure that you're signed up for the RESGEN newsletter so you can be among the first to know everything you need to know. If you don't currently receive our newsletter, I encourage you to head to resgen.org as soon as you're done listening to the podcast so you can sign up. All right, today I'm being joined by a good friend of mine by the name of Tim Twigg. Tim is a follower of Jesus. He's a husband, father, pastor, and entrepreneur from Charleston, South Carolina. And together, we're going to talk about a variety of topics, including battling our natural inclination to drift in different areas of our life, simple steps we can take when we're feeling exhausted or spiritually stuck, our misconceptions about rest, and leading others well during a season of transition. This is just a snapshot of what you're going to hear in this episode. So wherever you are tuning in today, I know that you're going to be glad that you did. So without further delay, let's get this thing rolling. Well, Tim Twigg, brother, all the way from Charleston, South Carolina, welcome to the Giving Life podcast.
God's glory land, a place I'm still trying to get you to move to.
Well, let's start with a visit. I know I still have yet to... Let's start with the visit. All good things happen. It's got to start somewhere. So hopefully this November, I'm going to be able to come to your beautiful city and spend some time with you. But brother, this is so fun. Thank you for saying yes to being on the show. And I know that the conversation we're going to have today is going to be life-giving, not just for you and me. I mean, that's a given whenever you and I talk, but for those that are listening as well. So I'd love for you just to kind of kick us off by introducing yourself, talk a little bit about the roles you have in your life, obviously, most importantly, as a follower of Christ and husband and dad, but then also just in the pastoral world, the entrepreneurial world, to kind of give a snapshot of who Tim Twigg is. And then we're just going to kind of get into our conversation here today.
Yeah. I usually just introduce myself. Hi, I'm Tim Twigg, Tom Henderson's friend.
Yeah.
And so that's usually all I need to say in a room. That opens up every door needed in every room I get into. So been a pastor. Well, you nailed it. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a husband and I'm a dad. I love the title of dad. It's one of my favorite things to be called. And so, but we were late to the game, man. I'll be 47 this year. We have a soon to be 9-year-old, and we adopted a few years ago. And so he's going to be 3 next month. And so we got a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old keeping me young, and just loving life. But yeah, been in ministry, been a pastor for about 25 years now, which feels very surreal to say. And I got into, always felt the call into business in some context. Grew up in a pastor's home though. I didn't really know what that looked like. And about 10 years ago, I decided to, I read a book, you may have read it, by Erwin McManus called The Last Arrow. And I was in my bed. It was probably maybe midnight, 1 a.m. while I'm finishing reading this book. And just felt like the overwhelming urgency to like, just stop putting it off. You need to start, you need to do it. And so I'm literally laying in bed, logging on to LegalZoom to start my company. Probably should have talked to my wife about it first, but Hey,
Well, you didn't want to wake her up because it was really late and you're asleep and you were being really conscientious
I
of
was
her.
exactly empathy drove that decision. so, so yeah, started the company and just did it to kind of publish. I started a publishing company just to publish my own books. I knew I wanted to write books, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. And we've had to kind of restructure it a few times as it's continued to grow, and we've gotten greater clarity over the years on what the Lord actually wanted to do, which you never get that when you first start this thing.
Right.
God's like, you can't handle it, son.
Yeah.
You need, yeah, don't outrun your headlights, son. Just take what I'm giving you. And it's emerged and grown, and yeah. So now I'm in that world. I love it. I love having like a thing that's mine, but still being in ministry, and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I love the heart of obviously of what you do. We've talked at length about AeroPress and just all the the stuff that you have accomplished, that you're seeking to accomplish, and helping people get out stories and messages that God has given them.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
the reader, the person on the, I think you put it this way, like the other side of the page or the others. I can't remember the exact wording, but I thought, man, it was so eloquent. And it's something that a writer and a publisher would say that somebody like me can't even think about. But so it's like, but like somebody needs the book that you have hidden in your heart or something like that.
Yeah.
Is it,
Yeah.
am I
Yeah.
butchering that too much or is that?
No, man, I wish I remembered it because that sounded like it was something really smart and
Yeah.
clever to say. We had AeroPress Publishing, and then one thing we realized very quickly is that we were reliant on people bringing a manuscript to us to publish, and more often than not, I started encountering people who had a message, they had a clear word from the Lord, they had a prophetic word, they had something in them that they knew had to get out, and they would come and say, I have this idea, and I have a few pages, or I have a chapter, and it just ate me up because in my world, being a pastor, in a spiritual leadership role, not following through with that is just, to me, is an act of disobedience. And I hated that for people because they had something birthed in them that God placed to help somebody else. They were a conduit of God's message, that it was going to be transformational on the other side of that book, and they weren't doing it. And so over the last year or so, we've started a subsidiary business. It'll go live at the beginning of the year called the Writer's Table. And the whole goal was that no God-given message should remain unwritten or unfinished. And the whole purpose of that was to help a person get from blank page to a completed manuscript, ready to be published in a course of about 9 months. And so that's going live next year. And we feel like that's just the continuation of that act of obedience. How do we help people get that out? And that was important to us.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so good. It's so, and I'm looking forward because I know you're going to send me some of the just kind of the, I guess, have me be the guinea pig a little bit and read into it. I'm so excited to see it
Yes.
because, one of the things that I've just always appreciated you, Tim, and just to give people just a little bit of background and color to how our relationship even started, we met through the Maxwell organization and being a part of the high capacity leaders group that over the last several years together. And one of the things that I tell people about being a part of a group like this is, there's obviously great content that we're receiving when we go to gatherings like this. When you're in rooms with 100 other leaders from around the country and you're having presenters like a John Maxwell share from the heart, you're getting great content. But what really makes the gathering special is the people in the room that you build deep relationships with.
Yeah.
And Tim, you're one of those guys for me. Aaron was recently on the podcast as well. Met Aaron through the high capacity leaders group, but I saw the depth of our relationship, Tim, to a really meaningful level. I mean, we were such great friends, but man, the way that you walked alongside me this last year in the throes of Laura's pain journey with her neck, and just calling, just on the regular, being very intentional, and just leaving me voicemails, audio text, with nothing more than I'm just praying for you today. And so the relationship that, just to give viewers and listeners a picture of you, it's just, you're such a, you're very special to me. So I'm grateful for the relationship that God's allowed us to have, and that we can bring some of the value that you add to the people that you minister on a regular basis to in Charleston, and even the way you've ministered to me, to listeners and viewers today. So it's so exciting, and I'm excited just to see how this new adventure that you're on with this subsidiary to AeroPress, what it's going to do for people and ultimately for the kingdom. Because the reality is even if it's just one person on the other side of a book, which we know that it's always way more, but when one person's impacted by a message, their world changes, because then they can change the world around them. So just speaks to what you're doing, which is so awesome.
And I think that's the heart that I think of any person that writes. I don't think anybody gets into writing to get rich. That you ultimately are putting words on paper because you're hoping at some point somebody picks up that book, reads it, and transformation, life change happens.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, not even in a spiritual context, you could take a book that's not deeply not spiritual, and the goal of the author is the same, that there would be a visceral reaction to someone reading my work, and it would do something in them. And so, yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important for kingdom. I think it's important that God gave us a book when he wanted to establish what life change looked like.
Oh, that's good.
He put it in printed form. He decided to be born at that time in that season with a printed text that we were able to carry for thousands of years now. And so,
Yeah.
I think if it worked for Jesus, maybe we should keep trying it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Well, and the whole mission of ResGen is to engage, equip, and encourage men to become more like Jesus every single day. And so maybe, just maybe, there's some people on the other side of this podcast that have a message that they need to share, and they're going to.
I was trying to find a Heart Not Hype book to put behind me for today, but we gave them all out. Like we gave them all out at our men's conference, and I couldn't. I didn't have any more.
Well, we'll get you another one. Well, so you mentioned, Tim, and we're going to talk a little bit about just kind of some things you're very passionate about, for sure. And then you're also in some transition with some change of leadership that I think you can provide some helps with, maybe some people that maybe find themselves in some transition in leadership in their life. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about your just the books that you wrote. And when we were talking back and forth about what kind of topics do we want to visit that will be helpful for listeners. And one of the things that you mentioned was actually on what your one of your books was all about, and that's kind of in how easy it is for us to just drift in our life. And I would say not just drift spiritually, but I mean, it's very easy to have relational drift, career drift, emotional drift. I mean, whatever, right? So I'd love for you, especially as you've operated in the organized ministry space, but then also looking at your entrepreneurial business stuff as ministry. What have you learned as to why it's so easy for us to drift when we usually don't have any intention to do so?
Yeah. I think what I realized, drifting is the default for us. That's not I think a lot of times when we hear drifting, we think that, well, we drifted because we made a decision. Like I made a bad decision and I drifted. And I think it's the exact opposite. I don't think you drift because you made a decision. I think you drifted because you failed to make one. And typically in our life, we were born into sin, so drifting is our default. It's that flesh that we have to constantly crucify, and so drifting is the default. And drifting is a nautical term, right? It's you've seen driftwood that ends up drifting, right? And it's drifting. It doesn't belong in the water. It shouldn't be there, but it's moving. Like it's dead, but it's still moving. And I think for a lot of us, that can define how we live our lives. We're dead, but we're still moving. We're just drifting. And so the challenge with driftwood is you can't just reattach it to the tree and it bring life again. But that's the beauty that we have with Christ, is that, we abide in him, he abides. And as we abide in him, as we stay connected to the vine, we bear fruit. And so but drifting it's a nautical term. And so drifting, I don't think is necessarily a moral failure. I think it's a navigational one. We automatically go to the consequence of drifting. And we see drifting is bad because of this decision that was made. And I would say that, no, it's actually a navigational problem. You failed to set a course and stick to it. And so you allowed the current to take you wherever you wanted to, right? And this is kind of how we define sin. Sin is missing the mark. There was a target, and somehow you drifted off from that target. and you end up hitting a wrong mark. And so it's challenging when you're trying to navigate home, work, your spiritual life, your physical life. You're trying to eat healthy, get to the gym. Not all of us are blessed with a body like yours, Tom. And so we get to we you just get thrown off because you fail to make really hard decisions sometimes, and you avoid the hard decisions, and you end up dealing with even harder consequences, and that's the challenge. And so I think in the book, that was the very first book that I wrote, and as I read it, I wish I could have done 30 things different in that book. Maybe I'll do a second version of that at some point. But I just outlined 8 catalysts that cause drift in a person's life, and the very first chapter was the thing that really awakened me to the book and the idea of drift, and that was pain, and the drift that happens because of pain.
And in the seeking to avoid it, or what, or
yeah. So we were living in Tucson, Arizona, and we were married for about 2 years. Got pregnant, perfectly normal, healthy pregnancy, and so then we're sitting in the hospital. Our daughter was about a week late, and so we're there and we're in the hospital, and we're just, you're kind of looking for that hallmark moment, right, where like the baby's born and they lay the baby on the chest and you're just there, like just this wonderful, super genuine moment where you just, I heard people say like, oh, I never loved anything so much when my baby was born. And so you're looking forward to all of these moments. But when we were going through it, my wife was in labor for 36 hours. And so at the end of 36 hours, we're like, man, what's going on? This baby's not coming. And so the doctor comes in and she's like, hey, there's meconium there that's in the baby's lungs. We have to work really quick and have a emergency C-section.
C-section, yeah.
And so we go through, and I have no idea what's going on. This is my first kid. I have no idea
Exactly.
I still have no idea. And so all I knew is like, they say, hey, Tim, we got to move quick. We got to do emergency C-section. I'm like, okay, I've heard of C-sections before. Like they happen all the time, no big deal. But we're sitting outside the operating room, and the doctor comes over to me, and he looks at me and goes, hey, we're going to do everything we can. And I'm going like, yeah, I would expect that, right? And he was like, yeah, we'll do everything we can to make this happen. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I just assumed I didn't realize like what could happen with a meconium being in a baby's lungs and all the things that could happen with that. And so they do emergency C-section. They take my daughter out. I see her for like just a glimpse. I mean, they pull her out and they immediately have 6 doctors working on her to kind of clear her lungs so that she can breathe. And so they whisk her off. They're taking care of my wife. So I go with the baby, and we get there. The doctor pulls me aside again and going like, hey, you're a Christian, right? And I had no idea. I didn't know he knew. I said, yeah. He goes, well, all I could tell you is she's in God's hands now. And I'm going like, what in the world are you talking about, man? And like, I have no idea. And he goes on to tell me that her acidosis levels are through the roof. He's telling me that she may never have normal brain function. She may not make the night. And as he's telling me this, a nurse runs into the NICU saying, Dad, you got to come quick. Your wife's bleeding out. And so he's telling me my daughter may not survive the night. I'm running down the hallway. I get to my wife's room, and I hear the nurse telling my wife, hey, we're going to try to save your life. And she has me sign some stuff, and she's like, we got to go quick. Your wife's bleeding out. And so they rush her out, and I'm sitting here in this hospital room going, what the heck just happened, man? Like, my daughter's fighting for her life. My wife is fighting for her life. And I'm just sitting here like, where's the happy story? Like, where's my hallmark moment, man? And I'm just, I'm breaking down. And I'm like, I just go into the bathroom and I just like weep like a little baby, because I'm like, I'm going into the hospital hoping to come out with 2.
Right. And
now I'm faced with the realization I may not come out with anything. Like, I may come out of this hospital alone. And so very traumatic. It was a special moment. And I just decided to do the thing I told people to do for years as a pastor. When you're going through these kind of moments, you need to praise. And as so counterintuitive as that feels. And so I'm in the bathroom, and I'm I just start praising God, and it's tough, man. Like, hard to be in that moment. And so I finally kind of pull myself together, and I go down to the NICU, and the doctor is just there. And he's like, well, we might be able to do an emergency procedure, fly your baby down to Banner Medical in Arizona, down in Tucson, Arizona. And I just had a conviction in that moment where I was like, you know what? If God's going to touch her, if God's going to heal her, if she's going to make it through the night, he can do it just as well here as he could down in Banner. So I was like, no, we're not going anywhere. I knew there were people in the lobby that were praying. My parents were out there. Some friends were out there. I walked outside to get a kind of a breath of fresh air, and I saw some prayer people from our church just like circling the hospital, praying. So it was just a special moment. I still get choked up about it. But by midnight, she was born that evening. By midnight, somehow the acidosis levels had gone completely down, and they were just calling her little miracle baby. Her turnaround was so instant. And then my wife recovered. We were both of them were in the hospital for about a week, but the pain came after that, and that's what I didn't expect. I think where people had looked at, people look at their kid and they go like, it's my pride and joy. It's my baby. I love her so much. I'm looking at my daughter going like, you almost killed my wife. Like I have this whole different perspective. Like, you are not the thing I love the most. You are the thing that became the most inconvenient element of my life in an instant. You almost took my wife. You almost died. And now she's colicky. She has like this really bad eczema. She has some digestive issues. She's crying nonstop. And it's all of this is kind of hitting at once as a first dad. And I'm looking I honestly could not look at my daughter and go like, yeah, I'm really happy you're here. I kept thinking like, why did I do this? This is a terrible idea. And at the same time, you're feeling that weight of like a deadbeat dad.
Yeah.
Because I should be loving her unconditionally, instantly, and I don't. I'm looking at her like she's the biggest mistake we ever made. And that, it kind of stinks as a dad
Yeah.
to have that moment. And it spilled over into work. The tiredness, the PTSD of the moment, waiting for the other shoe to drop constantly at this point, seeing my wife and my daughter in recovery, the challenge of all of that. I feel like every struggle that you could have as an early parent was hitting all at once. And it affected the work. It affected my relationships. The pain of that moment was just hard to process. And that's what I realized. It was in the middle of all that pain that all of these other areas of my life started to drift. My relationship with God started to drift. My intentionality at work started to drift. My leadership started to drift. It all started to drift. And it just took some time. It took like 6-8 months before I could look at my daughter and go, man, like, I love you so much. It took probably half a year of just feeling like a terrible dad and a terrible husband. And but it was that moment after that I realized like, okay, drifting isn't something that you really plan for.
Right.
It isn't something where you're like, hey, I'm drifting. No, it's that day that you wake up and look in the mirror and go, I don't recognize who I see right now. And I'm not the person I thought I would be in this moment. And so, it set me off.
Yeah, Tim, thank you for sharing all of that and new pieces of it, but not the entirety of that. And I a question that comes to my mind is, so you said 6-8 months goes by, and was there a decision that you made because and was the decision to shift your focus? And the reason why I say that is because so often, what I've found is in my own life is that when I have felt drift, it's because I'm so focused on myself. And my focus has left, maybe being 100% on Christ and on other people. And I begin to just focus more inward. And I think about your situation and your statement. You didn't say this in our conversation just moments ago, but I had to, I have to think that a thought that entered your brain was, hey, I didn't sign up for this.
Yes.
What I signed up for was the Hallmark moment. What I signed up for was the pictures that could go on socials and everybody could talk about how, cute and, like, oh, your family's so perfect. And that didn't come. So was there a time where you said, okay, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to shift my focus? Or how did that come about to where all of a sudden now 8 months, you're able to make the concerted like avoidance of drifting? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was a season of prayer and fasting. She was born July 31st, and we went, it was about 6 months later, we started our, it was 2018, we started our 21 days of prayer and fasting at our church. And so, I went on a 21 day no food fast, just liquid. And because I just had to kind of figure out what the root of that stuff was in me that was causing me to do. I mean, there was a lot of elements to it. There's some pity, some self-pity that's
Sure.
involved. You're kind of casting blame on yourself. At least I am as a man. I'm going like, what could I have done different? Is this like you ran through the gamut, Tom?
Yeah.
You're like, is there a sin I
Yeah.
committed? I mean, there were
Is
plenty.
this punishment? Yeah. Yeah.
Which one
Yeah.
was it? Like, is this my David moment where God's like, this is what you got to deal with because of your disobedience in the past? And so I'm processing all of this stuff, and I'm carrying the weight of all of it, like it's all my fault. And if I'm the one to blame, then I should be punished. And you know, God was using my daughter as the instrument of that punishment, and so it caused me to look at her a certain way. And I think it was during that season of prayer and fasting. I think that God just helped me to understand the Father's heart in healing my heart toward her. And now, I mean, gosh, obviously, after those 6 months, I was like, you're the best thing in the world. I love being a
Right.
granddad. I wouldn't ever want to do life without you. But I think it just took some healing. It took some positioning myself with some very close friends. Sharing, I didn't have any of those conversations of what were happening internally for probably about 4 or 5 months because I thought of how bad it just made me look as a man, as a husband, as a dad, to go, I wish this hadn't happened and I wish you weren't here. Like, how can you make that statement with people and hope that they just not judge you in that?
Yeah.
And so I think having some very clear, transparent conversations, some mentors, being very vulnerable and transparent. I wish I'd done it sooner. They were helping me to process it, but through it all, my friend,
Yeah. Well, isn't that interesting though, Tim? Because I think it is. It's this pressure that we can put on ourselves that, especially when you're in a leadership position,
gotta have to figure it out. Yeah.
you got to have it figured out, and then when you don't, or when you have feelings and thoughts that you feel like, boy, these I shouldn't be having these. Well, then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you begin to feel shame about that, and then what do we do with shame? We shove it, and so then and then and then
Yeah.
and then we project out that everything's fine, but internally
Yeah.
we're a disaster. We're an
No, and
absolute disaster.
everybody else could tell nothing was okay. Like
Yeah.
everybody else could clearly look at me and realize like you weren't the same person now that you were, you're not as ambitious, you're not as intentional, you're just not leading well. And
Mm,
a lot of it was just coming from that place of pain and not knowing how to navigate it.
yeah.
And but I mean,
Yeah.
God's faithful, man. He's so faithful.
Yeah. So, Tim, let me ask you this, because it is so easy to drift, because drift is our default. I think
Yeah.
that's a really great way to put that. Drift is our default. Um, as you think about just that topic, what are some safeguards we can put in place? What are some decisions? Because if we're drifting, that means that we're not making
Mm.
a decision. What are some decisions that you think are helpful for us to make, to get back on the right track if we've
Yeah.
recognized that we are in a season of drift?
Yeah. I mean, some of it sounds just a little cliche in terms of relationship. I think a lot of times as men, we get exhausted and we drift because we spend so much time trying to convince people that we are someone that we're not. And it's exhausting. You often say that God never blesses a counterfeit version of you, but that's what we end up doing. We end up living in this space where, I mean, I'm just trying to convince Tom that I'm as successful as my Claude bio says I am. Like I'm just trying to like convince people that, and most men I know aren't struggling because they're weak. They're not drifting because they're weak men. They're just struggling because they've worked so hard to make sure that nobody finds out who they are. And so that's exhausting. And so it's, a lot of people go like, well, you just got to go to the Lord, go to the Lord in prayer. And I read James and I'm like, I think it's actually not that, right? I read James, was it James 5:16? He goes, no, it's not going to the Lord for healing. You go to the Lord for forgiveness. And then you go to people for healing. And so you go to the elders, you have them pray over you, anoint you. And so I think that's if I were to talk to any man, the very first question I would probably ask them is, who's the person you're connected to? Was it Chris Hodges that says you're only as sick as your secrets? Was it him? I don't know if he coined that term or not.
I don't know if that was
But
him, but I have heard that.
I heard that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I think for most men, if you're drifting, I don't think it's as easy as like, hey, you should do at dot. Like, I think you should need to read your Bible for 15 minutes a day. I
Right.
think you need to, because then we get so caught up now in working for our healing that, well, that doesn't seem biblical. Now I'm supposed to earn my healing. I don't think that's the case when you serve a father that just wants you to be healthy and wants you to be healed and whole. So that I think it is about the transparency and intimacy that comes from transparency. I think if you focus on transparency, you're going to leave some things off. If you focus on just intimacy, you're going to still lead some things guarded. But I think when those two things come together and you live in this world where there's no secrets, like you're just an open book, because that's the desire, I think, for every man is to be fully known and fully loved,
Yep.
right? Like I want to be fully seen and you love me anyway. And most men just don't get there. And when you're working so hard to protect the version of you that you want people to see, then so much energy goes there, then you don't make the energy doesn't go to where it's supposed to go, which is putting you on course for the purpose and plan God has for your life. And then I think that's when you drift.
Yeah. What role did your wife play in all of this, Tim? The reason why I ask is because I think that a lot of times, is in my conversations with guys, and I'm sure you've had this conversations with guys before, is it's like, okay, yeah, well, I've got this group of dudes that I'm willing to be, I mean, pretty open and vulnerable with,
Yeah.
but boy, I don't want my wife to see that, or I'm scared to show my wife or even my kids. But let's just talk about on the spouse end first. For you, what role did she play in just your journey of being able to say, man, honey, I did resent our daughter for a little bit because, I mean, she turned things upside down. I almost lost you. We almost lost her. So what role did she play?
That's tough, man, because I think coming home with her, she was in the hospital for a week. Couldn't walk. She was just going through so much from all the just trauma to her body
Yeah.
in that season. And so as the man, you're trying to like, well, just gonna man up. I gotta figure out how to just completely reinsert myself at the pace that I was going before this happened. And I can't show any cracks because of what she's carrying. And now, I was home for like a week or two and now I'm back at work. Well, now she's home with the daughter, with every issue there that we had described, and some that we can't talk about, and then she's carrying that day in, day out,
Yeah.
every time you set my daughter down, she's crying. She had to carry her constantly. And so I'm coming home and she's exhausted and I'm exhausted. And so it was one of those seasons where you feel like I cannot let you see what's happening inside of me right now. But I
Yeah.
really didn't have anybody in my life that there was a couple people I could have called and I just didn't. Um, I just felt like, man, I just need to grin and bear this thing. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize until 8 months later how the negative impact that it was having in every area of my life.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it maybe after Abby started sleeping through the night some and we
Yeah.
could get some rest. We kind of rehashed some of it and talked about it and, shared some of that. That was tough, man. Like, I don't think I did a good job of that. I think I was I was just trying to be Superman
Yeah.
and getting
And
very
carry it
far.
all. And it's easy to say, okay, hey, just place it on God's shoulders. He's strong enough and all of that. But yet we still need to have people that walk alongside us and that will help us carry the load as well. And I think that, if I'm hearing anything, from you that can maybe be helpful for others is just your statement of, I wish I would have shared earlier. I wish I would
Yeah.
have just been open with other people that could help me shoulder the load, that could have checked, that could have been like Tim and Aaron, all these guys like you, and had, God had so many people that were just calling and checking in that I could call at 1 a.m. when I was at a weak moment and Laura's
Yeah.
in just being in so much pain, and they are lifelines. I think about that God gave us, obviously, a desire for a relationship with him, and that is the most important relationship, but he also gave us the desire for relationship with other people. And that's both in good times, mountaintop moments, but then also in valleys. And so, thanks for
Valley
your,
is where the voice tends to seem to be the loudest, though,
yeah,
isn't it? Like the enemy's
yeah,
voice in the valley is deafening. And
yes,
what and it kept being guilt, shame, fear, failure. Those are things I've struggled with a long time. And
hmm,
so all of those things are culminating in that moment of guilt, shame, fear, failure. You're the convincing me that I would I would give up whatever status, advancement, whatever I've earned or I thought I earned in that moment, that all of it would be forfeited in that moment that I decided to be transparent. And it's so stupid, but when you're just exhausted like that, man, you can
yeah,
believe it.
yeah.
You can believe it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about exhaustion, just because I think we all have times in our life where we do just, we feel like we can't take on anymore. We're bogged down, whether that be
Yeah.
at work or at home or whatever. And often as guys, our inclination is to just work harder, is to work harder,
Yeah, right,
to
right.
just try to be more productive, to try to, outperform uh, last month's bottom line, to prove that we're still of value, whatever, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and so when we're feeling exhausted, we don't even give ourselves opportunity to slow down. Partially because I think when we slow down, sometimes then we have to listen to our own thoughts, and as long as we keep ourselves busy, then shame can't set in because we'll just keep on working, right? So,
Exactly. I'll just,
um,
yeah.
so I think we know why that's the case, because I mean, we do find so much of our value as dudes in our
Yeah.
production, in our performance.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a lot how a lot of us were raised, right?
Yeah.
That's how we
Yeah.
got love and affirmation. But the interesting thing is that scripture talks about the importance of rest a lot, and
A
Jesus
good
says,
bit.
hey, come to me all who are weary and I will give you rest. But it seems like
Yeah.
Jesus often is our last person that we resort to. Fine, I'll come to Jesus now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
why do we struggle so much with rest? Like
Yeah.
what is our deal? Like, like
Well, we were created to work
yeah,
as men, and we were created to work.
yeah,
Uh, and God gave us that mandate very, very early. And so it's just, it's healthy calling out of alignment. I wrote a book called Chasing Rabbits. I read a quote by Confucius. He said a person who chases two rabbits catches neither. And then I ended up seeing this story about this. Have you seen like greyhound racing? Have you ever seen like those dogs run around the track
yeah.
doing greyhound racing? And it was a there was a dog named Ginny Lou, and Ginny Lou's on this greyhound racetrack, and all these dogs, the gate drops, all these dogs are going out, and they're chasing this mechanical rabbit, and this thing that just stays just ahead of them, so they're going after it. Well, in this particular day, this racetrack in Shepperton, this real rabbit runs out onto the track. And so all of the other dogs keep chasing the mechanical rabbit except for Ginny Lou. Ginny Lou runs off course and starts chasing after this rabbit, this real rabbit. And the funny thing is, like, you could look at that and go, like, well, Ginny Lou's the oddball. But the more you realize, you're like, oh no, these other jokers that are chasing stuff that doesn't really matter. They're chasing something that if they were to catch it, they would be unsatisfied. And so it was a season of my life where I was working a lot. I mean, I always work a lot, but it was
Yeah.
probably excessive. And my wife was so not so gently telling me that I had become obsessive. And I started reading about the Sabbath. Every time I picked up the Bible, I was reading about the Sabbath. And I decided to just do a personal deep dive into the Sabbath. And it's super convicting. And it just put me on this path of understanding, man, we obey. We believe it's okay to obey 9 out of the 10 commandments. You know, honoring the Sabbath, we're like, nah, that's negotiable. You know, but it's the hinge of everything that we do. And so people tend to work until they're burned out, and then they say they need a break or they need a Sabbath. So they work toward a Sabbath. But when you look at the scriptures, you should actually be working from the Sabbath. You shouldn't be exhausting yourself to a point where you're just so depleted. You should be working from a place where you're already fulfilled. And so you're going from like full moment to full moment versus depletion to depletion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that's the challenge. We go like, well, I'm busy. Well, busy toward what? And
Yeah.
and at what cost?
Yeah.
Because being out of alignment's exhausting. And sometimes we mask disobedience by calling it humility and service. God's going like, I need you to do this. Oh yeah, it's not humble to not listen to his word and to his voice. It's a ruthless prioritization and commitment to mission that we feel like we're walking into and that we're doing. And the whole time God's just going like, man, I actually built this thing for you to do nothing. What the kindness of God to command you to stop. Like what a generous God
Yeah.
to go like, this isn't a suggestion, Tim.
Right.
This is a commandment, and there's ramifications to you disobeying this commandment.
Yeah.
So
what a slap in the face when we say statements like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Yeah. So I'll sleep when I'm dead. As soon as I get, all the stuff done then and get done being busy, then I'll rest. So let me ask you to like, how can we get, because we've all become slave to our calendars at one time or another in our life. And maybe some feel like they're just calendars out of control. We get nervous when we see white space on our calendar because wow, what are we going to do? People are going to think we're not doing a good job or whatever. But so how can we get better at recognizing the difference from being busy to like, or just being productive to truly living on purpose? You just mentioned, being a part of God's mission. We're all called into God's mission, regardless of what we do for full-time work. But how do we get better at recognizing the difference? And how do we get better at not just recognizing the difference and saying, hey, I need to get better at it, but like, what do we do? How do we remedy the situation that we get in? Because I know there's people out there, myself included, that struggle with this idea of like, I just don't rest well. Is it a shifting of our definitions? Or like misconceptions about rest? What would you say?
Well, I don't think you can demonize hard work. Like just because you're a hard worker, I'm a hard worker, and you love what you do.
Yeah.
And I love what I do. And so we're doing something that we absolutely love. And so you go like, well, I'm not going to demonize a person that's a hard worker, because that person I think is just, on one hand, is being a really good steward of the gifts that God's given them. And two, it's kind of easy when you're in that flow of what you feel like I'm doing what God has called me to do. I don't think the challenge is necessarily working hard or producing. I think it's working hard or producing at the expense of a greater commandment. And so most men don't know who they are outside of what they produce.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. The problem with striving and associating our value with what we produce is that when we're no longer producing, then we've lost our identity, right? And so you could look at a carpenter and go, okay, you're a carpenter. Someone may say I'm a carpenter. Well, who are they if they're no longer doing carpentry? The moment that I've moved the production side out of their life, what's their answer going to be? Because I can go, hey, who are you? Well, I'm a carpenter. Okay, you're no longer doing carpentry. Who are you? I don't know. And we could apply that to every single thing. When I'm pastor, you're a pastor. Great. Yeah, I'm a pastor. Who are you? I'm a pastor. What do you do? I'm a pastor. When the job is no longer there, who are you? And I think there's an element that we miss. There's a relationship that we miss in this, that where we truly find our identity. And you know this, we've seen this before, but you're the thing that the person you are that can never shift is you're a son.
Right.
Like I have a son, you do as well. Doesn't matter what they do. If they're a barista or they fly a plane or they're in the military, it doesn't matter what they do. They're your son first and foremost. They're the son, right? And now they may do things to displease you, but they'll never do anything that will cause you not to love them. But we don't treat the Lord like that. We go, okay, God, you only love me if I produce. And so that's the thing that we give everybody else, because that's our identity. And I don't know, I had that revelation maybe a few months ago, and now I just introduced myself as a son. Like, who are you? Man, I'm a son. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm a son. Here's some things that I do. Here's what my calling is.
Yeah.
But I cannot forfeit my sonship. And when we start to go busy, we're trying to fill all of these other cups, and it's exhausting. And my pastor years ago said it this way. I don't know if he came up with this or not, but he said, "It's not my job to fill your cup. It's my job to empty mine." And so
That's good.
our role begins to shift to what do you do when you're exhausted? Chances are you're filling cups that God hasn't called you to fill, and yours isn't getting filled up as well on the side. And so I don't think exhaustion comes from working hard. I mean, people talk about burnout a lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I think burnout is a result of you not being on mission.
Yeah.
Can
And
you
I
be
love that
tired?
statement you just said. Yeah. Yeah. That was such a good statement too. You're attempting, because sometimes you're not even filling those cups, right? You're attempting to
No.
fill cups that you were never intended to fill, right? And
Yeah.
and I think that sometimes when we are trying to even do things, be all things to all people, so that you might reach some, as Paul says, but we try to be all things to all people and fill all the cups. And I actually, this was one of the conversations that Aaron and I had on a previous podcast, Aaron Snow and I had about this whole idea is we're doing it all because we just our desire to be affirmed. And that's where your
Right.
your
Yeah.
statement of just of identity first being found as a son is it's been adopted into the family of God by our heavenly Father is so powerful. And it's kind of a joke now. I mean, there's still people. I mean, Isaiah and Chase have friends that say, "Hey, you're ResGen Tom. You're a follower of Jesus, a husband to Laura, a dad to Isaiah and Chase, and you're the founder of ResGen." It's kind of a it's kind of a
Yeah. Yeah.
joke because it's how I
Yeah.
lead all my talks and how I introduce myself and all of that. But the reason is because it reminds me that at some point, I mean, yeah, maybe I'll always be the founder of ResGen, I guess, and hopefully ResGen continues long after me. I mean, who knows? That's up to the Lord. But like, if I stop doing ResGen tomorrow, those
Yeah.
first three pieces of my identity, those will not change.
Don't change.
I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do with all my working hours and gifts and talents and steward those to the highest, capacity. But that is such an important piece. And you see this, I'm sure, Tim. I mean, you're the executive pastor of a very large church on the East Coast, multiple campuses, all of this. And you've probably dealt with a lot of retired men
Yeah.
over the course of your ministry
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And I have conversations with a lot of them over the last year who are newly into this retired season,
Yeah.
and they're really wrestling with like, what do I even do?
Yeah.
Like there is the who am I piece, but how do I still feel like I got a lot of life to give. And
Yeah.
so how are we, even as people who have identified the role we have in the family of God, how are we helping other people understand their role and that their life is to be poured out? That's what I love about what your pastor said. It's not my job is not to fill your cup, it's to empty mine. And if you and I truly live our lives pouring it out for other people,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what stage of life we're in.
That's right.
Every day it's about pouring ourselves out for other people. So
That's right.
I guess, but it's that consistent connection to Christ that I think
Yeah.
allows us to accomplish that. So let me ask you this: for the dude that's listening who feels like, man, they are exhausted and not just tired, but exhausted. They are spiritually, they're physically, emotionally exhausted.
Yeah.
What would you encourage them as a good first step towards finding rest,
Yeah.
reconnecting to God, and finding really joy in life?
Well, if you're 25 years, you do a lot of counseling appointments and you do a lot
Yeah.
of these conversations. And I could tell you almost 10 times out of 10, I would say 9 times out of 10, because maybe there's a one off, but I would say almost every single time, if someone is exhausted, is because they're out of alignment. Almost every time. Because stopping, especially when you're busy, entrepreneurial, whatever, stopping feels like drifting. Stopping feels like losing. stopping feels like laziness. And that's not the case. It's not how God wired things. And so for people, for men who are exhausted, the very first thing I would do is the question one of my spiritual fathers taught me when I was just a young guy in ministry. He said, son, the very first question you ask every single person when you meet with them, how's your quiet time? How's your time with the Lord? He said, "Cause son, you'll know right away where their misalignment is." And I tell you, Tom, every time you get the same response every time. Okay, it's always this: "Hey, man, how's your quiet time? How's your time with the Lord? How's your daily time with the Lord?" Well, yeah, I feel like I'm probably I don't know, maybe like a 6 out of 10. Like no eye contact.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, if you're a 6 out of 10, I'm like, oh, so you're probably a 3. And they're like, yeah, you're right. And so it all, healthy, godly priority. It's God, self, family, work, church, right? And when you're out of alignment somewhere, that's gotten twisted. God's not the head. Work is up there. Like I always tell people, like, this is where I would pretend I might get fired. I say it's your family, your work, that stuff is before church. It's not before God, but it's before church. Bible says if you don't work, you don't eat. Like you have a job, you have a responsibility to work. There's a calling in that. I don't think call to ministry is bivocational. I think it's co-vocational. I think it's a unified calling. And so I think there's an element of that where you go like, no, I'm not going to have you sacrifice your family or your job to serve in church. And I don't think God would want that either. So if you're exhausted, 9 times out of 10, you're not in alignment. You're not resting. There's no Sabbath. Your quiet time is suffering. You're not hearing from the Lord, because if you were, he would realign you. And you're probably not transparent. You're probably not connecting with anybody who is genuine. I have a couple mentors, and they have free reign to talk to me however they want. And they'll be the first to go, Tim, you're off on this, bud. Like, you're wrong. You need, this is off in your life. You need to make a shift.
Yeah.
And so I think, if you're exhausted, go to somebody with an open calendar and open mind, and have them ask you some really tough questions and be committed to that answer. I don't want to give you a formula, because I think that's a waste of time. I think everybody has their own pain points,
Yeah.
But if you're exhausted, you're out of alignment. That's my take.
Yeah. That's good. Well, brother, I want to chat a little bit on some leadership stuff with you, because you lead at a very high capacity. You're currently, in process as a large church, getting ready to shift leadership in the coming, year, probably less, with someone else stepping into the lead pastor role as the lead pastor resigns and no longer says, I'm the pastor, right? He's the former pastor, right? Or whatever. And so I'd love for you to just talk about some of the things you're learning in this season of transition, of leadership. I'm not asking to share anything that you don't want to share or can't share or anything like that, but just some of the things that maybe you're learning as you're seeing leadership transition, but you're also part of the leadership team that is helping that transition take place.
Yeah.
Because not only are you trying to help the entire leadership team transition well, but you're also trying to get all the people that call your church home to transition and embrace new leadership as well. So what are some things that maybe you're learning that have been helpful that could potentially be helpful to others?
Yeah. There's a book I read every year. You've probably read it as well, A Tale of Three Kings. So I read it every year because you always have the decision: do you want to be Saul, David, or Absalom? And I think in this season, Absaloms tend to come out of the woodwork a little bit in this season.
Yeah.
Where they don't think they're Absaloms, but they're trying to take this transition moment and kind of insert their preferred future. And they're not always wrong in heart, but definitely wrong in timing, wrong in tact. And so I think one of the things you're learning in this season, it's really challenging, because once one leader announces that there's another leader coming, people's default, as soon as our lead pastor said, hey, next year this is happening and this guy's gonna be, people's default is to automatically shift their focus from the existing lead pastor to the upcoming, successor. And so in doing that, they're dishonoring the guy that's still there. He's still leading. He's still leading at a high level. He's still leading well. And then you start to hear some of these phrases that come out like, well, whenever this happens, then this can happen. And whenever, and you have to stop a lot of that because now you're starting to demonize a man who's been in this leadership. I'll tell you our specific context, 42 years leading this church, taking it from, 100 people to 9 campuses, 5,000, 4,000 some odd people. And this is the guy who's been in all the seasons. He's stained the carpet with his tears. He's been on his knees for 40 years building this thing. And what a just jerk move to in this transition moment to shift your honor from him to the next guy just because there's a transition happening. So I think there's in this season, it's teaching people to honor slow. Honor slow. You've got to, it's theirs to give. It's his to give, not ours to take. And so you say, we try to keep telling our team, you value the honor and the pace that he's willing to give more than anything else. And you value that relationship over whatever result or thing you want to see happen. So I think honor in these seasons are hard. Honor's hard when you're ambitious. Honor's hard when you want to go and you just want to, you want to be at July of next year already, and you can't be, and that can be hard. But you got that heart to just say, I'm not going to be the Absalom. I'm not going to be that one that overthrows. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to be the guy that just goes, Lord, this is all yours, and if you allow me to be part of this journey, I'll be a part of it. If not, it's not mine to take anyway. So,
don't you think a lot of times when it doesn't go as healthily in whether it be a business or in a church, it's often because it's being driven by fear. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of what's going to change? And so then we get into self-preservation mode, or if this person leaves, then what happens to this thing that is going really well right now? And so how have you as an organization strive to honor, but also cast vision for where the church is heading, so that fear, because the enemy, right, would love for fear to take hold. In your people. So what's been helpful as you honor, but yet still cast vision on what's to come, but celebrate where you've come from?
Yeah. And you're right. The number one question everybody asks when there's change is, what does this mean to me? It's automatic. What does this mean to me? And I think that's the challenge when you're not casting vision, or you're not super clear. If it's muddy in that transition, then people have vain imagination. It just starts to go. And so that's hard when you're feeling that too, and you're trying to encourage your team at the same time I made a statement earlier that you don't outrun your headlights, and that's a driving term, because you can go so fast that by the time something enters your field of view within your headlights, you can't react quick enough to avoid it. You're outrunning your headlights. And I think in this season, a lot of people tend to start outrunning their headlights. They start kind of grasping for some vision so they can have a footing. And with me as well, you start to look for, where's my footing in this transition? Where is it at? And that desperation to have some sort of just like solid ground to stand on, you start asking for things that the Lord isn't ready for you to receive.
Yeah.
And so then what you start doing is going like, well, I'm going to do Saul then. I'm going to go, the prophet says, wait 7 days, not happening yet. So I'm going to take matters into my own hands. And I think that's where people really start to erode their believability in the transition, is they start walking outside of this thing and not trusting that the grace of God is going to be on the transition, that the anointing will be there. That if they don't have a place, then it was God's plan anyway for you to not have a place. But that's, everybody just wants to know, and they want to be in the know. And it's not always for us to know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, because I think there's so much ambiguity and there's so many different. These are always hard.
They are. They're always hard, and every situation's always different, right? And all of that. And I think about one of the things that churches often don't do well is transition leadership. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
and you always hear about, well, you know what? It seems like when a new pastor comes in, you've lost 25 to 40% of the congregation. The people that, help build the church will stay, and others will go and shop around and, whatever. And so I think that's where fear can kind of guide some of the decision-making process. And why having a transition plan, and even, I mean, you look at companies, the way that companies transition leadership in companies,
Yeah.
there is a walking alongside. And when you see companies not just survive, but thrive through a transition in leadership, it's because they've done it very well and they had a strategy that's tied to it. One of the
Yeah.
things that, and is for churches, I feel like there's sometimes a hindrance to create a strategy that is obviously given by the Lord, still releasing so that we can make our
Yeah.
plans. He'll order our steps, but
Right.
yet still putting something in place that will create a healthy transition. And so, as you've been in this, where your pastor makes the statement, a year ago, and hey, at this time next year, I'm going to be, wrapping up, and so that's why I was asking if there were some certain things that you've done well that would be helpful for maybe some others. That's where that question came from.
Yeah. I think the benefit for us in this season is that, well, I mean, it doesn't. So I've been through two of these. This is the second one I've been to at this level, at this size church, where there's
Yeah.
a senior leader at my last church in Tucson. The guy had been there for 25 years. He's the same thing, grew up from, 60 people to 5,000 people and dearly loved. So you're going to two churches where the lead pastor is just dearly loved
Yeah.
and and just really appreciate it. And now you have God is releasing that, taking that mantle off, putting it on another. And man, I've seen it done so well. Like even they did it so well. I mean, it was masterful how they
Hmm.
planned it out over a period of years, and the baton hand, like it was just done so well. And it still didn't matter in that there were people that were like, I don't like this new guy and this new vision, and
Sure.
I don't
Yeah.
like, and you go, that's okay. Like
Yeah.
that's okay. You always try to get to the heart of it. I don't like their personality. I don't like the way they preach. I don't like this move. Okay, then maybe God is releasing you to be a service somewhere else, and you're okay with that.
Hmm.
But what you try to insulate as much as possible, what I've learned of these two experiences, you try to insulate the guy going into that role as much as possible, because there's so much insecurity that's going to hit that guy
Oh
that,
yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it's easy to criticize from the second chair, man. Like it's easy to be critical when you're not the one that makes the final buck decision. But when they're there, to try to protect them, to try to take the bullets for them, for me, that's the thing I would pride myself in, of going like, let me make the hard decisions. Let me be the heavy, so you can be the hero, if that's possible.
Hmm.
And so I think the more we can insulate them, because the enemy's going, gosh, the enemy hits so hard that transition moment,
Yes. Yeah.
in terms of every insecurity you could ever have comes to the surface. And
Yeah.
so yeah, learning how to lead staff in this, learning how to communicate, protect, cover,
Hmm.
and then you just go, okay, Lord, just let your grace be on it.
That's good, Tim. Man, that's good. Well, brother, this has been a joy, man. It's been a joy to well, I mean, you know how much our convos always bring me joy anyway, but just to be able to have
Always.
this conversation here has just been very life-giving, and I've absolutely loved it. And at the end of each of our podcasts, we do something called the final word, where we just ask the guest to share 30 to 90 seconds, whatever God lays on your heart,
Mm.
as maybe it's a final word of encouragement, maybe it's a challenge, maybe it's circling back to something that you shared earlier that you want to double down on, that you just want to leave people with. And
Yeah.
so I just have this final question here for you, Tim, and that's what's your final word for us here today?
Man, been in this entrepreneurial world trying to learn a lot. Uh, Building something that matters has been on my heart. At the end of the day, you build something that matters. And most entrepreneurial success is measured by scale, not by impact. And so people grow companies, they grow big things, and then they end up at the end going like, yeah, but does it even matter? And I think if Ephesians 2:10 says we're his workmanship created, that there's a work that he's called us to, which is a beautiful thing. I think the goal for most men is you can be entrepreneurial no matter where you're at, because you're going to build something that matters in the long run. And yeah, go after it, go for it.
Yeah.
Trust God, see what he does.
Well, I love you, brother. I'm grateful for you. And just so your friendship has just been a tremendous gift over the last several years. And I know it's going to continue to grow. And again, thank you for just sharing some of your story and some of the things that you've walked through and learned, because I have no doubt that it's been helpful for people. So thanks a ton.
And you are on video saying you're coming to Charleston now, so
Yeah.
I can hold this.
That's right. You can hold this over my head. So, all right, Tim. Hey, I love you, bro. If people want to connect with you, I'll have them head to your website to connect with you. If they have other questions, if they want to talk with you about publishing, any of that kind of stuff, we'll make sure that they're able to connect with you. But really appreciate your life and your ministry, and we'll talk soon.
Love you, friend. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the ResGen Giving Life podcast, everybody. I hope you were encouraged by my conversation with Tim today. If you were, I'd be honored if you'd share the episode with others in your life, whether that be by text or via email or by posting it on your social media channels. If you'd like to connect more with Tim, you can do so by visiting his website, twtwig, that's with 2Gs.com. All right, that's all for today. Thanks again for listening in on this episode, everybody. Until next time, continue being men whose life in Christ gives life to others. We'll see you soon.